Hello and welcome to MBKM Models. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow for more aircraft documentaries and model build videos. The short S-25 Sunderland was a British flying boat patrol bomber, developed and constructed by Short Brothers for the Royal Air Force. The aircraft took its service name from the city and port of Sunderland in northeast England. Developed in parallel with the civilian S-23 Empire flying boat, the flagship of Imperial Airways, the Sunderland was developed specifically to conform to the requirements of British Air Ministry Specification R233 for a long-range patrol, reconnaissance flying boat to serve with the Royal Air Force. As designed, it served as a successor to the earlier short Sarafan flying boat, sharing several similarities with the S-23. It featured a more advanced aerodynamic hull and was outfitted with various offensive and defensive armaments, including machine gun turrets, bombs, aerial mines, and depth charges. The Sunderland was powered by 4 Bristol Pegasus 18 radial engines and was outfitted with various detection equipment to aid combat operations, including the Lee Searchlight, the ASV Mark II and ASV Mark III radar units, and an Astrodome. The Sunderland was one of the most powerful and widely used flying boats throughout the Second World War. In addition to the RAF, the type was operated by other Allied military air wings, including the Royal Australian Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, South African Air Force, Royal New Zealand Air Force, French Navy, Norwegian Air Force, and the Portuguese Navy. During the conflict, the type was heavily involved in Allied efforts to counter the threat posed by German U-boats in the Battle of the Atlantic. On the 17th of July 1940, AROF Sunderland, of No. 10 Squadron, performed the type's first unassisted U-boat kill. Sunderlands also played a major role in the Mediterranean theater, performing maritime reconnaissance flights and logistical support missions during the evacuation of Crete. Shortly after the German invasion of the island, several aircraft were used to transport troops. Numerous unarmed Sunderlands were also flown by civil operator British Overseas Airways Corporation (BOAC), traversing routes as far afield as the Pacific Ocean. During the post-war era, use of the Sunderland throughout Europe rapidly declined, while greater numbers remained in service in the Far East, where large developed runways were less prevalent. Between mid-1950 and September 1954, several squadrons of RAF Sunderlands saw combat action during the Korean War. Around a dozen aircraft had also participated in the Berlin airlift, delivering supplies to the blockaded German city. The RAF continued to use the Sunderland in a military capacity up to 1959. In December 1960, the French Navy retired their aircraft, which were the last remaining examples in military use within the Northern Hemisphere. The type also remained in service with the RAF up to 1967, when they were replaced by the land-based Lockheed P-3 Orion. A number of Sunderlands were converted for use within the civil sector, where they were known as the Hythe and the Sandringham. In this configuration, the type continued in airline operation until 1974. Several examples were preserved, including a single airworthy Sunderland which has been placed on display in Florida at Fantasy of Flight. During the early 1930s, there was intense international competition to develop suitable aircraft to operate new long-range intercontinental passenger service between the United Kingdom, the United States, France and Germany. It was recognized that the United Kingdom had no existing equivalent to the new American Sikorsky S-42 flying boats or the German Dornier DOX. Accordingly, in 1934, the British Postmaster General declared that all first-class Royal Mail sent overseas was to travel by air, establishing a subsidy for the development of intercontinental air transport in a fashion similar to the U.S. domestic program a decade earlier. In response, Imperial Airways announced a competition to design and manufacture a fleet of 28 large flying boats, each weighing 18 long tons, 18 tons, and having a range of 700 miles, 1,100 kilometers, with a capacity for 24 passengers. A corresponding contract was issued to Short Brothers of Rochester for their design, which became the S-23 Empire. On the 16th of October 1937, the initial S-25 prototype, K4774, performed the type's maiden flight, fitted with Bristol Pegasus 10 radial engines capable of generating 950 horsepower, 710 kilowatts, of power each. The more powerful Pegasus 22 model was unavailable at the time. Flown by Short's chief test pilot John Lancaster Parker and Harold Piper, the initial flight lasted for around 45 minutes. Later that day, a second flight of a similar duration was performed. Parker later declared his satisfaction with the basic design. Prior to the first flight, the type had received the name Sunderland. As with all water-based aircraft, there was a need to be able to navigate on water and to control the craft up to and at a mooring. In addition to the standard navigation light, there was also a demountable mooring mast that was positioned on the upper fuselage just after the astrodome hatch with a 360-degree white light to show that the aircraft was moored. The crew members were trained in common marine signals for watercraft to ensure safety in busy waters. The craft could be moored to a buoy by a pendant that attached to the keel under the forward fuselage. When the craft was off the buoy, the forward end of the pendant was attached to the front of the hull just below the bomb aimer's window. For anchoring, there was a demountable bollard that fixed to the forward fuselage from where the front turret was retracted to allow an airman to man the position and pick up the buoy cage or to toss out the anchor. At the outbreak of the Second World War, on the 3rd of September 1939, 39 Sunderlands were in service with the RAF. Although British anti-submarine efforts were disorganized and ineffectual at first, Sunderlands quickly proved useful in the rescue of the crews from torpedoed ships. On the 21st of September 1939, 2 Sunderlands rescued the entire 34-man crew of the torpedoed merchantman Kensington caught from the North Sea. As British anti-submarine measures improved, the Sunderland began to inflict losses as well. A Royal Australian Air Force Sunderland, of No. 10 Squadron, made the type's first unassisted kill of a U-boat on the 17th of July 1940. At the outbreak of the Second World War, on the 3rd of September 1939, 39 Sunderlands were in service with the RAF. Although British anti-submarine efforts were disorganized and ineffectual at first, Sunderlands quickly proved useful in the rescue of the crews from torpedoed ships. On the 21st of September 1939, 2 Sunderlands rescued the entire 34-man crew of the torpedoed merchantman Kensington caught from the North Sea. As British anti-submarine measures improved, the Sunderland began to inflict losses as well. A Royal Australian Air Force Sunderland, of No. 10 Squadron, made the type's first unassisted kill of a U-boat on the 17th of July 1940. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time.